All right, welcome back. This is a second one basically in a row. This doesn't happen often. So this one is going to be covering basically the basics of the basics in regards to interiors. It's going to show you how to set up your interior collision, your interior shell, your Y type, your Y map, and your manifest. So the way we're going to be doing this is that you are going to be downloading my interior template, which you can find on my Discord. And the reason I'm saying you can find it on my Discord is because obviously I want to get some traffic to my Discord, yada yada yada, because why not? So it's gonna be on my Discord under tools, and then it's basically gonna be called interior template. So we're gonna download this one. Gonna open it up. And we're just gonna move this out of the way again. I'm gonna put this out on our desktop real quick. So in here we have basically the only files you need for a for interior to work. This is like the basics. We only have the collision, we only have our shell, we have the Y type for the information, we have the Y map for the location or placement of the interior, and then we have the manifest for everything to work together. So we can put this in if we go into OpenIV. Like always, we need to do our mods update x64 DLC pack. Create a new one. I'm gonna call this one interior _ tutorial. And then, because I don't remember these by heart, I'm just gonna click on these, and then we're gonna create DLC x64 levels GTA 5, and as per usual we're just going to call this one for models, and we can take these and just put them in there. We are going to be changing these as we go along to match our interior and the stuff we've been working on. But you can see we have our static collision, we have our shell, we have the manifest, we have the interior Y type, and then we have the Y map. If we click on the static collision, you can see my basic interior is literally just a box. You can see we have the two collisions. We'll go over this why there's two rather than just a single one. We click on the interior template. See, we have the box by itself with nothing really interesting, but it's an interior. It's a way to go about it. It's a good way to start. So that's what we will be doing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the basically the textures we want to use for this interior. Obviously, you can make your own texture dictionary. You can use your own custom textures, but I don't suggest that. That's just a personal opinion, because I'd rather use something that's already in the world and that would fit with the world. So, people complaining about people using the PD interior textures all the time, but why would you not use the PD interior textures when they work with what you're doing? So in this case, we're going to be searching for motel because it's quicker than having to fly there ourselves. And then we're going to be using, I think we're just going to be using these textures. We're going to be making something that looks a little bit like this, just to make it not too boring. So we're going to be selecting this one. Let's see if we can find the right one. This is the beams. We don't want that one. There we go. So this is the shell. Has a little bit of everything. So we have V72 garage shell. So we're gonna go back and do IV. Gonna find our shell. Gonna double click on it just to check. So we can see there's a missing texture for the garage door and for these wall frames or whatever. I don't remember the name of them, but you get the idea. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna right click, export, and in this case we might as well just put it in to our interior template, make a new folder, call it texture ref. Just put that in there. And as per usual, we go back into CodeWalker, go to archetype, and we're going to look for the texture dictionary. I'm just going to copy paste that one. And that's going to be this one. We're going to right click, export, and put that in the same place. So texture ref, put that in there. But we can minimize and we can close this because we don't really need these for now. So in Max, we will be importing. So in my case, go to desktop, interior template, and texture reference, and we just select the garage shell ODR. I know from a fact that a lot of people like to work on these kind of things where they just kind of select the walls and then they just copy paste them. I did not want to select clay. I want this. We're gonna go to standard materials, enable transparency off. So what they like to do is that they select walls like this, and then they kind of copy paste them to extend the walls, which is not a good way to go about it, in my opinion. Obviously you can do it, but it's better to just make the walls yourself. So the only reason we have this one is because we want to use this as our texture references. So we're gonna yoink, go into our material editor, which is gonna be up here. Again, if you don't have this overview and you have this one instead, what you do is you hold left click on the button until you see this menu, and then you select this one. I'm gonna select the first material, I'm gonna click on the pick material from object, and then we're just gonna select this one. You can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 materials that we want to use. So now that this one is done, we can just select both of these in the top left and just hide them. We can use them later on if we don't want something for a reference, like a size reference. So might as well just keep it in here. And now we can start working. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and make a box. So we're going to make this box. Just make it 20, 20, 20. Length segment. Just make this 1, 1, 1. Because right now we don't really need any more than that. So we have our box. Now we want to make sure we have this centered. So we select the box, right click on select and move, and then just right click on these arrows to center it. This means that it's going to be 0, 0, 0. We want to make sure that everything is basically centered at all times. So you can see our pivot point is currently over to the right of the box rather than in the middle. So we right click on our box, go to convert to editable poly. This is going to be turned into an editable mesh later on, but it does that by itself. I think GIMS does that. So we're going to click on the third one up here, hierarchy, go to effect pivot, center to object, and then just disable this one again. And you can see that currently it's -10, so we're just going to right click on this one again, and now it's moved into the center. So it's currently called box, so we want to call this interior. You can call it whatever you want. So in this case, I'm just going to call it interior underscore tutorial underscore shell. And I'm going to unhide our shell from previously. You can see that there's quite a bit of difference size-wise. So I'm going to select here, going to turn on vertex mode, and we're also going to turn on snaps. Right click, make sure we have vertex snapping on. Make sure we have enable axis constraints. Then we're just going to move this one up and down to make sure we have axis constraint to the y-axis, and then we're going to make it snap to this point here. That means we get the height correct. I'm going to select these, do the same. Now you can see we have the height of the big room basically sorted. Obviously, the entrance is a bit smaller, so we're probably going to fix that as well. But in this case, I'm going to select these two. Like, this comes back to, do you know how to use 3ds Max? If you don't, you might have to read up on it. So this should be basic knowledge. So we're just going to make sure we get all of these in the correct position, size-wise and everything. And then the last one, there we go. Now we basically have the same size as the open area for the garage. So what we want to do now is we want to create a door that goes into something like they have here. And again, this is going to be very basic. We're not going to put a lot of details into it. So what I want to do is I just hide this one real quick. I hit Alt-R to do a ring, which means that it's going to select everything around. And click on Connect. And I have 2. Click on OK. Now we have a bit more to work with, meaning that if we unhide this one, we can, again, so I use the detail layouts as reference points to see the size of everything. So in this case, if we want this to be the perfect size for a door, we want to use something that has that size. So in this case, I'm going to be just copying this part. I'm holding Shift and moving it to make a copy while in polygon mode. I'm going to clone it as an object. I'm going to hide the shell. And then we have this one again. So we're going to go back just to make it easier to work with, effect, and then center to object. So we can see we have this. Now we're going to turn on angle snapping for rotation. We're going to rotate it 90 degrees. And we're going to place it basically center. So in this case, center is the middle of this box. We have 0, 0. And we're going to just put it here because that means that we can align with these and these. So I'm going to select our box. Go back to vertex. And now we select these here. Moving up and make sure they snap with these vertex from our reference. Do the same here. And then we're going to do the same on this angle. So around the object. So we're going to select one again, hit Alt-R. Do connect, but only one this time. And then we move it up. While we have everything selected, you can also do it back in vertex mode. We just move it up, make sure it snaps to these vertex. So now you can see we basically have a size that fits our reference. So we do hide this one. You can see that the door looks like it's basically what it's supposed to look like. So now what we can do is, obviously we don't want the doorway to be the same, like we don't want to do it like this. So basically this is our hallway. We want our hallway to be a little bit bigger than the entrance to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to extrude this one just a tiny little bit. So maybe 1 is way too much. So 0.1. Yeah, we can make it 0.2. 0.1 seems fine. Click OK. And then we extrude again. Obviously, this comes again back to, have you ever worked with 3ds Max? We're going to make this 5. And we're going to extrude this one once more in 0.2. That's fine. And now what we want to do is we want to click on the sides, extrude these a little bit. So we're going to make this 0.5. Click OK. And then we're going to select the top, extrude these 0.5. So now we have a hallway. We have an entrance and a hallway, and then we have the back door, this is as basic as it gets. So this is basically our layout. So what we want to do now is we want to make sure that if we select every single polygon, like just hit 1, Control A, set the material to 1, and then we select our building. We make sure we have this one selected, and then we click on assign material to select it. And now you can see everything looks a bit weird. That's because our current unwrap is a bit fucked, to say the least. So what we can do is we can select the sides, like so. Then we're gonna give this a texture that we like. So we might as well use the other building as a reference. So we're gonna use these as the walls. For the top, we can use some of these over here. So number 5 is ceiling. So we're gonna select ID 5 ceiling. And then the bottom here, I'm gonna select these out here as well, which we are gonna look for concrete dark, which is gonna be number 3. There we go. And then again, we have this outer hallway where we're gonna select all the faces, polygons, whatever. There's gonna be something missing for sure, but hey. There we go, and then these two. Oop. Which we're gonna make into either number 6 or number 7. We'll see. So we'll give it number 6. Yeah, there are gonna be some white concrete walls. Again, we're gonna select these upper. This one we might as well make number 6 as well. This tutorial is gonna be quite long, just a heads up. Oop. We're gonna select the upper part, which we're gonna make into might as well make it a 4. Sheet metal? Nah. We're gonna make this into... We're just gonna make it 5. This is not supposed to be pretty, so it is what it is. And... oh, this one is missing, so make this one 3 as well. There we go. So what we want to do now is we select the walls. So in this case, that one. And then we're going to go to modify list, UV. You already kind of have gone through this in one of my other tutorials. So, and then we're going to make this a box. And then we're going to look at height. So height is 10. Is this correct? That is correct. Width is 10, and then might as well make the other one 10. That means they're 10, 10, 10. We just check, because it seems like our unwrap is messing up on the side here. There we go. That's the one. So alignment on this one is Y, and then we're going to click on fit. And we're going to make it 10, 10, 10. No, that's not true. I'm going to make it 3.6, 3.6, 3.6. There we go. That's a bit better. For the roof, so UV map, right click, collapse to. Just click on yes. For the roof, and for the bottom here, it's probably going to be a little bit different since the size is going to be different. There's going to be some wood in there that I didn't give a texture, but hey. So what we can do is we can hit F2 to hide the selection. Do UV map. Again, just do box. And then do fit. And in this case, we might want to try the same one. See what happens. That looks... it looks alright, size-wise. Obviously, you would have to mess around until you find something that looks decent. But in this case, this looks okay. Obviously, you can mess around with the size. This is the height. 3.6. The width until you find something that looks decent for whatever you're working on. Right-click, collapse 2. And we are just going to do the same thing. So this one is number 4. So I'm just going to select this part here and make, wait, what was it? Number 6. Make this into number 6 as well. And I'm going to select. So we select all of these. Just going to do the same thing real quick. UV map. Box. Y. There are going to be some pretty concrete walls. Fit. And I'm going to make it length, which I'm just going to copy paste out to these. It's not the prettiest, but hey, again, like I told you, use Rockstar's own things as a reference. Right click, collapse 2. And there we go. Now we have our shell with textures. So what we want to make sure is we go into our material editor and make sure all of our textures are embedded. So in this case, wood is not. I don't believe we're using wood anywhere, but just make sure you go through these and embed them. We could also use a texture dictionary, which would be the same one as the previous one, but in this case, we're just going to embed them all. And bump, diffuse. All right, so we should be all right. We can close this one. So we have our interior underscore tutorial underscore shell. So what we want to do with this one is we want to go to create object, go to models, and game mesh modifier, and then model, which we're going to place center of everything. Right now, you could still go to effect pivot, center this to the current model, which we're just going to do. Let's see, this moves a little bit, and then we're going to move this like that. So it is currently centered. And then for the model, we just created, which is going to be up here. We're going to call this one the same. And then we're going to take this one and move it in. And just call this for underscore high. So now we have our shell. What we want to do is we want to create our collision that fits this shell. So every time you make a change to the shell's size, shape, whatever, you would have to create a collision that fits the shell. In this case, we are going to go with this one, which is going to be our final product, just for the sake of this tutorial not being awfully long. So we're going to go back here, just leave this one for now. In our interior tutorial shell, you right click this one, you clone it, make sure you select copy, and we're going to call this one OX1. Click on OK. Now you can see we have the OX1, we have interior tutorial shell. So we're going to go back to create object, go into collision, and create a... Oh, I forgot, is it composite? It is a composite. Which we are going to call interior shell underscore call. We're going to go back in here. We're going to take this one and move it inside our interior collision. So now we have interior tutorial shell call OX1, which we will create a new material for, because that's the reason when I showed you the other one, you could see that there were two collision models inside the one collision. And the reason there is that is because collisions will tell the game when you are touching a part inside of an interior, and it will change the instance for you. In this case, the first one is going to be default, which we're not going to do anything with. It's going to be GIMS material. You can see room ID. Leave this one at 0. So we make sure we have our interior selected and then assign that one. We're going to hide the other one. Now you can see this one is just going to be the pink color. We also want to make sure we delete our game mesh and assign a collision modifier, which we are going to give the usual values. So 0, 2, map animal, map cover, map dynamic, map vehicle, map weapon. But what we also want to do is we want to create a few more materials that obviously fit the different materials. So in this case, we want, let's take a look. We want some metal and we want some concrete. We want some more concrete, and then I guess this one is also metal. So we want 2 more textures. So this one we're going to call for metal. We're going to select GIMS material. We're going to make sure we set room ID to 1 on this one. And we select metal solid medium. And then for this one, we're going to call this one concrete. We're going to do the same. Make sure we set room ID number 1. And then I believe this is man-made. Nope. It is in hard terrain. Hard terrain concrete. So now we have these 3. Again, let's hide this one. Right now you can see that these materials are not all pink, and that's because they have different material IDs. So make sure you select everything again and set it to material ID 1, like this. And then we are gonna right click on OX1, click on clone, and then we're gonna call this one OX2. Make sure you have copy. Hide OX1 because we don't want to use that one currently. And then we go to polygon. So we're just gonna select everything, set this one to 2, which in our case was metal. And then we're going to select the ones that we know are not concrete. So we're going to select everything here. Like so. And we're going to select the bottom. So we have everything selected. And then we're going to select that or set that to ID number 3. So there we go. Now you can see we have the different materials set, and the roof is still metal. So that looks about right. Obviously, do it your way if you want something different. Just keep in mind that you want 2 of these. If you only have a single one, there's going to be issues with having like looking through first-person view, and if you no clip into it, it also doesn't work. And there's a few issues that's going to occur. So if you run into your interior not showing up, or your interior disappearing on you when you look through your eyes, it's because you only have 1 collision and you don't have the room ID set to 1. So just keep that in mind. So now we have our interior shell and we have our collision. So we're just going to go ahead and export these 2. So interior template, gonna make a new one that's called output. Click on OK. And we don't want to export this one. Click on continue. So what you want to do now is, now we have exported these, but because we made these all custom, means that everything is basically split up into squares. And Rage Engine, for some reason, only works in triangles. So we're just gonna hide these. Might as well leave them for now. If something does fuck up somewhere, you're gonna go back to import. We're gonna import the 2 outputs we just had. Now you can see from before, where we only had squares, now we have triangles. So what you want to do with these modified versions with triangles is that you want to go back to our shell, go to editable mesh, select every single vertex, Control A, and you want to weld these together. This is going to fix any issues there might be with smoothing groups. What you also want to do is under vertex coloring, we set the vertex color to something green. I usually go with 170 to have it a bit dark-ish. And you can also do this for the shell, but the shell doesn't really care the same way as everything else does. But we might as well just do it, just so we keep that in mind. So there we go. And then we're going to go back to export, output, and going to make sure we select the two last ones because these are the two last ones we imported to the scene. Click on OK. So now we have, in our output, we have the shell and the collision. So in OpenEye, we want to go back to our interior tutorial. Just clear this one. And we import these. So now we have our interior tutorial shell, which looks like this. Looks about right. And we have our interior tutorial shell collision. Whoops. Which looks like this. And we have 0 and we have 1, meaning that we have both of these needed, which is how it's supposed to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our interior shell or interior template where we have all our files still in XML format. We're going to take our new static collision and drawable. We're going to move these out. Then we're going to take the old one, interior template shell and interior template collision, and just delete these. Then you are going to open up from, I believe we were going to start with the Y type, right click, edit with Notepad++. If you don't have Notepad++, get it. This is the best way to work with things. And we're just going to go through my template file and just replace. So we start from the top, interior template shell, Control F, replace, and we're going to replace this one with interior tutorial shell. Replace all. You can see 4 places has been replaced. So basically, just go through the file. Everything will make sense in regards to how it's set up. But because this is a template, it's easier to just use a template. And that's what I usually do myself, instead of making this from the ground up. So interior tutorial shell has been renamed. We go down a little bit where we have the interior template call, which we're going to rename into interior tutorial shell collision. Replace all. We can see replace 2. And then we are pretty much done with this one. We have a single entity in our Y type, and that's because you need at least one entity, I believe, for it to work. In rooms, we have limbo. Limbo is basically the room 0 that's not being used for anything specific, but it's the one that tells you this is I guess, the interior. We have room 1, which in our case, we're only going to have a single room, which is going to be the one where you touch the collision with the room ID 1. It sets you to room 1. And then at the bottom, we need interior template, which is the Y map name or the Y type name. We are going to rename this one into interior tutorial. And we might as well just search for template just to make sure we haven't left anything out. Nope. So we're going to save this one interior type template, Y type. And we're going to rename the Y type to interior tutorial. Obviously, rename it to whatever you want. Just make sure you have everything named correctly. Then we're going to go to the Y map, edit with Notepad. And then we are going to rename anything that has to do with interior template Milo. We want to call this one interior template or interior tutorial Milo. Replace 2 places. So it's going to be the top that's going to be replaced and the bottom. We also want to rename the interior template call because that's not the one we use anymore. It is interior tutorial shell collision. There we go. And just make sure we don't have anything that's missing. We do not. So we're going to save this. There we go. And then we're going to go into our manifest. Our manifest, we don't need to rename. We just need to make sure that everything fits in regards to the naming. So also make sure we obviously rename our YMap to interior tutorial Milo. So we go into our manifest, into interior tutorial Milo interior template, which is not what it's called anymore. It is called interior tutorial interior tutorial. So these two here are Y type names. And then these down here is the collision name. Just keep that in mind. So if you rename it to something else, like this is my shell.y type. You would have to type this is my shell in these two here. Interior tutorial shell or underscore collision, and then we're just gonna save this. We're done with that. So the only thing missing is because my Y type and my shell were different sizes, we need to update the boundary boxes for our Y type. So we are gonna go into the Y type creator. Gonna go ODR browser, open, navigate to our interior template, go to our output, and interior tutorial shell. Calculate. Import. Models. Flags. Embedded collision, we use none of. External, we use none of. AD texture, just set this to 100. LOD, just set this to 200. And then we're going to create. View created. And then we have our model information. So we're gonna use the LOD to extension, and like always, make sure we clean this. So everything that has like this should be this, which is not the case. This seems all right. So we're gonna go back into our Y type, click on edit with Notepad, and then we have our shell, which is going to be the top one. You can see shell, where we are going to use, let's check, BB minimum, maximum, sender, radius, AD texture, and so on. That's the one we're going to yoink or take from here. So just copy paste these from HD. So there we go. And then we're gonna take, let's check just to make sure. We're gonna take BB min and max. So we're gonna take BB min max. And this is to tell the game that the size of the room for Limbo and room 1 is going to be the same size as our model, basically. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. I wouldn't suggest making it smaller, but hey. So we're going to take BB min and BB max, just copy these, go into Limbo, paste it here, go into room 1 and paste it here, and hit Control S to save. There we go. Then we can close this one, and we can clear out this. Take all the new things we made. So shell, Milo, Y type, YMF, manifest. Take this in here. Minimize. Close this. And then we open up Code Walker. So this is not going to show up. And the reason for that is because we need to load the YMap. So we're going to take our interior tutorial Milo YMap, drag it into our interior template folder. So we have it here, not as an XML, but just as a YMap. in CodeWalker, we're going to hit T, create a new project, click on open, and then we're going to navigate to our interior template, and we're going to select interior tutorial Milo. We're going to go to entities, select our shell, click on go to, and now you can see it shows up. This is our interior. This is located, for some reason I located this below pin cage. So what you want to do is, right now we have the Y map, so we can move this around, and the easiest way for us to get there quicker is I'm going to just move it up into the center of pin cage like this. As per usual, go back Y map, calculate extents, calculate flags, and just save it. We're going to save the project file as tutorial interior underscore tutorial. But we also want to add, just for the fun of it, we want to add a door. Ooh, this looks like we fucked something up. Yep. So, I guess this is a good learning experience. What we fucked up here is that our walls are facing out rather than in. So, we are going to save this. Close CodeWalker. Go into our... go into Max. Select our shell. Make sure you select everything. As you can see, I did not notice this because I'm a Vega. You can see that these lines are white, meaning that these are showing on the outside. So what you want to do is select everything, click on flip. Really? Turn. No, not turn. Where's the one for edible poly? Flip. There we go. So now you can see these are dark lines, meaning that they're facing inwards. Gonna do the same with the shell, because right now the shell is gonna be blocking on the outside, I believe, and not so much on the inside. So editable poly, make sure you go to create object, models, game mesh modifier. It's gonna convert it back to a editable mesh, so don't worry about that. We're gonna hide this. Gonna go to editable mesh. Let's see if we can flip these. So for some reason it lets us flip these around. So that's good. So these are flipped. You can see that they're gray outlines, and we're going to do the same with this. On OX2, editable mesh, select everything, flip. There we go. So we're going to go back to export to output. Just going to make sure we only select the last ones again. Click on continue. And then we're going to go into our output. So select the two new ones. Drag it in here. And let's just check. There we go. Notice that there's this up here. So I forgot to select this part for texture, but we'll leave it at that. Open CodeWalker back up. Click on T, open, interior tutorial, Go to. And now this is going to look much better. There we go. Now it actually shows up. And you can see the outside is going to be transparent. So now we're going to add a few entities to our interior. I only have a trash can because you need at least one thing in here, which in my case is going to be the trash can. So we're going to select our trash can, click add to project. And now we have, you can see it adds the Y type with the shell collision, limbo, and room 1. So you want to make sure whenever you add something, you add it to room 1. In this case, we're going to leave the trash can, but we are going to add another entity, which we will make. What do we want in here? Maybe a lamp, because there's some lights missing. So we're going to prop out light. Just going to move that in here. Move it to the wall. Move it a little bit up. And then we can copy paste this. Control C, Control V. We're going to flip it around. There we go. Move it a bit further over so it's above the door. Go. Leave it there, and then we're gonna move the trash can down so it's like in the center of the room. There we go. So because we made a change to the Y type, you are gonna have to replace the Y type in OpenIV. So we're gonna click on Control or click on Save. Save the Y type. We're just gonna replace in the interior template. Save the Y type. Click on Save. And we made sure everything is saved. So obviously interior Y map is also saved. Gonna go back into OpenIV. Go back into our interior template. And then we're gonna select not the XML ones, but the Y map and the Y type without XML. We're gonna move these in here, replace the old ones. There we go. And we're gonna go back into our tools, manifest, generate, save manifest, save. And we're going to take the manifest, not the XML, but normal manifest, and put that in here as well. So if we check, we have all the data in our Y type. We now have the lights and we have our raw file. So now we just need to stream it. So in our server, FX server data, resources, whatever. Let's check if we have room for... where do we want to put this? No. Not in here. We're going to make a new one called Interior Tutorial. Where we're going to take all our files. Make a new stream. And then we're gonna take our usual resource.lua. There we go. Make sure everything is looking correct. This is map, yes. Stream. All right. We go back, make sure that we are in fact streaming this. So server config. Start interior tutorial, save that, and then we start our server and connect to it. So everything went as it should. Obviously, we haven't covered portals, so you're not able to walk into this interior, but you can, in fact, fly into it and use it as interiors. That means you could create a teleporter using a script that goes into your interior. We will be covering portals probably in the next one using the same shell. So just keep this shell saved for next time. All right. And we are just gonna, first of all, make sure we can see ourselves. So we're gonna just select Michael, F2. And then we're gonna fly over to Pink Cage. There we go. So, as you can see, there is something on this wall here. And this is what we talked about. The reason for this is probably because I either used the wrong shell file or I did not merge the two of these vertex. So we're gonna go back and take a look real quick. But you can see that, oh, we're way too fast. Our interior is now, you can't see it because it's an interior. That's the wonders of interiors. Now we're inside the interior because the collision doesn't block. But if we use F2 to no clip into it, we are now in the instance 122.882, which is our interior instance. So that's how you create a basic interior. So let's just double check why this is happening, like this part here. So we're just gonna quit, and we're just gonna reset our scene. Just save this as an interior tutorial. Just gonna reset our scene, import our output shell, output, and you can see that is why there's an issue right here. It's because this one is flipped for some reason still. There we go. And as per usual, select everything. 001. Export. Go into interior, output, take the shell, YDR, just check. All right, looks all right. Take our files, put them back into our streaming folder. Just replace everything. And we're just gonna check. So, yeah, keep in mind, flipped normals, flipped polygons are gonna cause issues. So make sure everything is obviously facing in rather than out. Make sure that you weld everything together before you export to make sure that the smoothing is going to be all right. If not, it's going to cause issues with your normal maps and your bump maps, which is going to look really odd. But yeah, I think I might redo this tutorial, but for now, this has to be all right, because I know a lot of people are waiting in regards to how you make these interiors. So let's double check. So again, this doesn't have a portal, so you can walk into it, but it does work if you were to make a script that teleports you inside of it. So there we go. And when we look at the wall, the wall is all right. This part is gone. So if we do just weapons, give all weapons, you can also see a collision works like it should. This is metal. This is concrete. This is metal for some reason. So the materials we set. This is concrete, metal, and so on. So there we go. That's about it. This is obviously only creating the shell the collision and the interior files. But from here, you can create your own models that you will use in the interior. I suggest that the next thing you create is dirt maps, which you put in like these corners. It's gonna add so much more. Like just having dirt and like stuff in the corners of these walls makes it look so much more alive and lived in. Obviously put some doors in as entities, some doors, maybe a door frame. Like just these small details is what makes everything come together. Obviously some lights, but we'll go over lights in one of the other tutorials. But yep, there we go. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know on Discord. I will probably redo this one since there's a few fuck-ups here and there. I'll see if I can do it more clean, but I know we're all kind of waiting for this one. So anyways, I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye.